It is a weaker Friday morning, with strength in the Canadian dollar accounting for some of the activity. The currency is up by roughly half a cent relative to its U.S. counterpart. That cuts into crush margins and makes exports less attractive to global buyers. Canola down $4 in the March contract at $823.50 per ton. Overnight losses in Malaysian palm oil also weighed on prices, but Chicago soy oil and European rapeseed futures are both higher, providing some support. Canada exported just over 200,000 tons of canola during the week ended February 5th. That took the year-to-date total to 4.5 million tons and compares with the 3.5 million tons exported by the same point the previous year. In the U.S., soybean, corn, and wheat futures are all higher, with broad weakness in the U.S. dollar behind some of the strength there. Soybeans had been under pressure overnight but managed to move up, with a rally in soy oil providing support. March beans up 8 cents at $15.27 per bushel. Soy oil up over a penny in the March contract at 60.13 cents per pound. Uncertain production prospects out of Argentina remained a feature in the bean market. The Buenos Aires Grain Exchange pegged the country's crop at 13% good to excellent. That was up 1 point from their last estimate, but the amount in the poor to very poor category was also up, increasing by 2 points at 48%. The exchange forecast production in the country at 38 million tons. That's well off the USDA's already low 41 million ton estimate from earlier this week. Corn also underpinned by the Argentina production uncertainty and end-of-the-week positioning, with prices moving back above some key moving averages. The March contract up 10 cents at $6.81 per bushel. Wheat also posting solid gains this morning. March spring wheat in Minneapolis up 14 cents at $9.32 per bushel. Kansas City up 29 cents in the March contract at $9.08 per bushel. And Chicago wheat up 29 cents as well in the March contract at $7.86 per bushel. That's a look at the ICE futures and U.S. markets for Friday, February 10th. In Winnipeg, for MarketsFarm.com, I'm Phil Franz Workington.
See more and do more in a new 300 Series compact track loader from New Holland. Its industry-leading 360-degree visibility is truly something to see at Butler Farm Equipment. With its reverse camera and 8-inch multifunction LCD display, super boom lift technology, rock-solid stability, and redesigned controls, you'll work with greater speed, safety, and precision. Maximum productivity starts with a clear view. Stop by Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John today and see how a new 300 Series compact track loader helps you do more.
The opinions expressed during this show do not represent those of this station. If you've missed any of this show, you can follow the podcast at energeticcity.ca. Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Moose Talks with your host, Doug Craig, on Moose FM.
Welcome to the show. Later on, we'll be chatting with Becky Grimsrud, who is the host for the Fort St. John stop on the Elevate Aviation cross-country tour, hitting town on March 14th. The nonprofit aims to introduce more women to careers in the aviation industry, so we'll talk all about that and more. But first, Zolo put out an article late last month about BC's most affordable places to live, and Fort St. John ended up ranked second overall and first in our category. So, to chat about the article, we're joined now by the author, Jordann Kaye, who checks in with us from Halifax. Jordann, welcome to Moose Talks.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. I thought first we'd start with this. Zolo, I'll be honest, and I apologize if this is a little insulting, but I hadn't heard of Zolo before I read the article for the first time. So why don't you tell us a bit about what Zolo is, first of all, and kind of what you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Zolo is actually a national real estate marketplace where millions of Canadians go to buy, sell, and learn about real estate. So we have an online platform where you can search for homes. We also have a mobile app where you can do the same. And then also extensive education, because our goal is to really educate Canadians on the home buying and selling process. And that was sort of why we conceived of this report, with the goal of really educating anyone who is interested in moving to these cities in BC to find out, is this really the right choice for me?
Well, we have to say that when we put out an article about your article, all about how Fort St. John did and sort of the findings you had in it, it really lit up our social media, definitely. Just in general, what kind of response have you heard so far to everyone really across the province and across the country reading this?
The response has been really great. We did set out to, like I said, create this educational resource, and we did our best to quantify the affordability of these various cities. We used different factors like housing affordability, but then we also looked at things like unemployment and population growth, because just affordability isn't necessarily enough to make a city a place that you actually want to live. But although we did our best to quantify it, we couldn't take every single variable into consideration. So the response from people who actually live in these cities and the additional insight that they have provided has been really, really interesting to get their perspective on our perspective, essentially.
Well, I thought we'd take a minute for people who maybe didn't read the article. Can you tell us a little bit about how Fort St. John ranked? As I said, I think we were second overall, really, in the province, and kind of what the sort of the landmarks of the article were that made it so that Fort St. John was in second place.
Yeah, absolutely. So we set out to quantify essentially where are the best places for people to move in British Columbia according to several factors. So we looked at, as I mentioned, housing affordability, so that would be home prices, but then we also included average incomes in the area, because high home prices paired with low incomes does not make very much affordability. We also looked at features like economic strength, so that includes unemployment rates, because we want people who move to these cities to actually be able to have jobs, and then also population growth, because generally a growing city is a good indicator that people are moving there and it's a desirable place to live. So we broke it down. We did the entire list, but then we broke it down into small, medium, and large cities, just because people have preferences. You might want to move to only a large city, so we gave them those options. And Fort St. John actually did come out number one in small cities, and the reason for that is the very moderate house price paired with higher incomes gave them a really strong edge for affordability. The unemployment rate was fairly average for the province, so that didn't really hurt the city that much, and then the population growth was steady. So all of these factors together resulted in Fort St. John coming out number one for the best, most affordable small city in British Columbia, and then they actually ranked number two as well in the entire list, which is very different from the report that we put out a few years ago. So there shows that there has been some improvement over the last couple of years as well.
I think a lot of the commentary was sort of debating exactly what the numbers meant, like we were talking about on social media. I think in general, we were all like, of course, Fort St. John's affordable. That's why we're all here. And so many people choose to make their lives here because housing prices are fairly low compared to certainly Vancouver, and wages are comparatively high. But I wonder about, and you kind of already said this, you couldn't quantify everything, but factors like the price of food and electricity and whatnot, that didn't really factor in like in a specific way into this, I suppose, eh?
It did not. So in this particular case, we didn't include, for example, a good measure that could capture that would be the living wage for the various cities. And in our responses, that was what came up the most often, is that we didn't factor in the cost of food, the cost of gas, etc. Taxes tend to be the same across the province, so that's not something that we really need to consider. But then moving forward, if we do renew this report next year, that would be something that we would look at adding in, because in the past those were not as big of a concern, but with inflation those costs are becoming a real concern for Canadians, so that is something that we should consider including in subsequent years.
I also want to talk a bit about I think the wage, or pardon me, the income, I should say, was also something that people were talking about a lot. Those numbers, where did you draw those for? Like, what was where did you come up with those numbers specifically?
So those are from Statistics Canada for 2021. And when we looked at housing affordability, we actually looked at both single income wages and then the total income for households. So the stats in the article show the total income for households, but we did consider individual wages as well because we recognize that not everybody that moves to a new city is part of a household. Then maybe they are a single person who is looking to buy in a small town, and their average income should be also taken into account. So that's included in the calculations as well in terms of the overall house to price or price to income ratio, I believe.
Gotcha. And what about the possibility that, like really high earners, people who, maybe even millionaires who happen to live in Fort St. John, could that have skewed the numbers really at all? Or is this still really an accurate way of saying this is kind of where we're at?
It is accurate because there are some cities that it is immediately apparent that it's a tourist town, and there are some very, very, very high earners there, and there are some very, very low earners as for example, the service workers who would support the tourism industry. And those towns ended up faring more poorly because the housing prices were quite high, but the income did not increase enough to offset that. So they scored poorly because there were multi-million-dollar homes, and yes, there were very wealthy people that were living there, but there was a good portion of lower income earners, and they would not be able to afford to buy in those specific areas.
Now, you did mention too that Fort St. John, I guess, went up in the list from the last time an article like this was done. Did anything really surprise you, even just about Fort St. John or kind of the province in general when you were compiling this? And were you kind of taken aback with sort of the changes that happened in sort of the ranking?
There was quite a bit of shuffling, but there was not any major red flags where that might have indicated, oh, maybe we had our data wrong. So I believe Fort St. John was in the top 5 last year, or maybe 2 years ago when we published the report.
Yeah.
And since then has risen to number 1 for small cities. So generally that's what we see. There's some shuffling up and down in the numbers. The larger cities like Vancouver and Victoria always rank near the bottom, which is where they should be for affordability. So there was nothing that was really a standout in terms of someone shooting up in the rankings or anything like that. But that slow and steady improvement is what we like to see.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we really appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with us about this today, Jordann. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right, that's Jordann Kaye with Zolo talking about the article about BC's most affordable places to live. We'll check in with Becky Grimsrud on Elevate Aviation right after this on Moose Talks.
Make this Valentine's Day the ultimate date night with Mr. Mike's Steakhouse Casual by ordering their romantic 3-course dinner for a price you won't regret. Start off with an appetizer from the Valentine's Day menu, add an entree for 2, and finish it off with a sweet and delectable dessert to share with that someone special in your life. Oh, and get ready to wet your lips with their fabulous selection of wine and bubbles. Available for takeout or dine-in, but this is only from February the 11th to the 14th. From Mr. Mike's Steakhouse Casual on Alaska Road and at mrmikes.ca.
Man, you sure make good money at Trican, but how do you manage the elements in our cold Canadian winters?
We're not in the elements all the time. Trican has cabs on their cement pumps. I stay warm and cozy. Join me. Trican is hiring cement operators, no experience necessary.
The other guys don't have cabs on their cement pumps, but Trican does. Learn about their $5,000 referral bonus, minimum 3-person cruise, 6% RRSP match, plus competitive benefits and compensation package. To learn more, visit tricanwellservice.com/careers.
You might be thinking Valentine's Day flowers are a little too expensive, but you haven't met Deb at Petite Petals, with flowers for every budget and everyone on your love list. Petite Petals lets you pick your price point. Pre-order your Valentine's Day flowers now. Custom floral designs, European hand ties, and so much more. Call or order online. Delivery is available.
Say Happy Valentine's Day with Petite Petals, your one-stop shop in the Little Yellow House on 102nd Avenue. Also on Facebook.
The Fort St. John Hospital Foundation 50/50 is back, and you can win up to $10,000. Get your tickets right now on their website, fsjhospitalfoundation.ca. Tickets are 2 for $10, 10 for $20, or 25 for $50, with the grand prize draw happening on March 14th. proceeds from the lottery will help the foundation buy critical equipment and PPE for the hospital. Get your tickets at fsjhospitalfoundation.ca. The Fort St. John Hospital Foundation 50/50 is proudly supported by Moose FM and energeticcity.ca. BC Gaming License number 139266. Know your limit, play within it. Can-Do Oilfield Services is a privately owned pipeline and facility installation company in Fort St. John. They strongly believe in executing all their job functions in a safe, cost-effective, timely manner. Can-Do Oilfield Services is a proud supporter of the oil and gas industry.
Your clients, like you, are listening to Moose FM. Call 250-787-7100 to start advertising to them.
Watch this show live on Facebook or download the podcast at energeticcity.ca.
Welcome back. I'm Dub Craig. Now we're going to talk a bit about Elevate Aviation. They are stopping in town in mid-March to really encourage women to join in careers in aviation. So to talk about that, we're joined now by the local host of Elevate Aviation's tour stop here in Fort St. John, Becky Grimsrud. Becky, welcome back to Moose Talks.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here today. First of all, why don't you tell us a bit about this event coming to town with Elevate Aviation?
So the cross-country tour is an event that Elevate puts on every year. Obviously, it didn't happen for a couple of years with COVID and the events surrounding that, but we're happy to have it back this year, and I think they've got quite a few different tour stops all over Canada, from the territories to the Maritimes, southern BC, northern BC, everywhere in between. So quite a few different tour stops. We're happy to have it here in Fort St. John. And it's really just an event to increase awareness that there are careers in aviation for women, and to just put that little spark in girls at targeting about the 12 to 18-year-old range to increase awareness that there are careers in aviation for women.
Why do you think this is a challenge, that getting women involved in aviation? I mean, you work in aviation, you fly helicopters. Why do you think this is something that needs to happen, and we need to have more women in aviation? Why is that a struggle, you think?
So Elevate has had studies that they've either found the info from or hosted or that kind of thing. And all the research that's been done has basically suggested that the only reason that, or one of the main primary reasons that more women aren't in aviation, is just lack of awareness. They don't, it doesn't occur to them as a young child that, hey, this is a career that I could choose. They see certain things and get steered towards them, but just having that, taking your kids to an air show or seeing a female pilot walking through the airport or that kind of thing, it gives them this little glimmer of, hey, I could do that one day. So it's something that, as a woman in aviation, it didn't occur to me to become a pilot when I was a kid. It wasn't until I was an adult that I even considered it. So
yeah. And if you don't mind me asking about your story a bit, I mean, have you kind of experienced firsthand some of the challenges that come with that? I don't want to call out the industry a bit, but is it a bit of a kind of a boys' club in aviation then? Is it harder for women to just be in and stay in aviation because of that?
It probably is. It's definitely changing over the years, but it's no different than trades or that kind of thing where there's a dominantly male workforce and you've got to find your place within that. So I think part of that is that some women naturally kind of fit in to those workforces a little easier. And as it becomes more inclusive and more diverse, more women who don't naturally fit into those groups would feel a little more included and able to try a career in those fields.
Well, tell us why, what are kind of the advantages of being in aviation then, especially if you're a woman? What's so great about the industry?
I can't really speak from a female-centric perspective, but I think aviation is a fantastic career for anyone to choose. There's a lot of things that are great about it. Of course, like my office views, you can't beat those. So it's one of the perks to the job.
Absolutely. And then this event, I think you said it's kind of targeting kind of middle school or junior high, I should say, and high school kids. So again, this is about raising awareness. So this event is really about showing girls that you can be a pilot or work in the aviation industry in a lot of different roles, even if you don't want to be necessarily flying the plane, I suppose, eh?
For sure. Aviation, everyone always just thinks pilot as the, obvious career choice, but there's a wide range of different career choices, and we're actually highlighting a few presenters this year that are not pilots, which is kind of interesting. We've got our managing director from the airport coming out to speak, as well as some flight service specialists who work up in the tower and direct air traffic. And then also a Paratag smoke jumper from the Paratag base, which is, it's kind of aviation related, but maybe on the firefighting side. So I just thought of that and was like, that it would be really cool to have a speaker from that base. So it's just a wide range of different career choices. And then, of course, there's the aircraft maintenance engineers who fix the aircraft of any kind, and wide range of different other career choices as well. So
wonderful. And then as part of this is there's sort of, if people are interested, is okay, here's where you can get more information or you can go to school for it. Is there access to that in Fort St. John or nearby where you can actually, if you say I want to be in aviation, you can actually study it? Is that close to home too?
So the closest aviation program we have is Northern Lights College, has the aircraft maintenance engineer program in Dawson Creek.
Okay.
So that is a very close by option. I'm not sure what the requirements are for some of the, becoming managing director of the airport or something like that. But I would recommend, if there are careers like that for anyone that they're interested in, just see if you can find somebody who does that job and just reach out to them and see what the requirements are, how they got into it, that kind of thing. A lot of the other programs are a little further away, like to become a flight service specialist. I think you usually have to travel and do a bit of training out of town, and then you would come to a smaller community such as Fort St. John to kind of get thrown in there to work with one of the more experienced flight service specialists. But really depends on the career.
And I mean, that's a lot of adventure that you can have to certainly start and throughout your career, depending on what you want to do. So, all right. Well, the event coming up March 14th, as I said, which, by the way, is the first stop on the tour, I think I saw. How do people sign up for and register for this? What's kind of the game plan for those people?
So if you search out Elevate Aviation, it's right on their website for registering. But we do have hopefully some school groups coming. So I would say the easiest way, being that it is a school day, is probably to try and talk your school into doing a tour.
Okay. And then if you are a teacher, well, I guess you'd be teaching, but if you happen to see this video later, that's on the Moose FM Facebook page, they can reach out and sort of set up a field trip, I assume.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. Well, again, it's March 14th, the event here with Elevate Aviation coming to town. Becky, thanks so much for taking a few minutes to chat with us about this today.
Absolutely. Anytime.
That's Becky Grimsrud, again, the host for Elevate Aviation's stop here in Fort St. John. We'll be right back to wrap things up on Moose Talks right after this. Do you have some good news you'd like to share with the community? We here at Moose FM want to share your positivity every weekday. Whether you're fundraising for the SPCA or saw someone doing a good deed in the community, we want to hear from you. Email us at reception@moosefm.ca and we'll share your good news right after the 7:30 a.m. news and on our Facebook pages. Good News is brought to you by Frontier Law.
Some of you might be disappointed this Valentine's Day won't include a romantic dinner at your favorite restaurant or a night at the movies with your love. But if you ask me, a Valentine's date alone at home is even better. Stop into Veronica's Closet and pick up everything you need for a Valentine's night in. Sexy lingerie and massage oils, toys and games. Trust me, you don't have to go out to have a very happy Valentine's Day.
Veronica's Closet, your all grown-up store on 93rd Avenue, and check them out on Facebook.
New puppy or a wise fur baby? We want to see them all. Visit moosefm.ca to enter Pet of the Month to upload a picture of your pet. Voting starts on the 15th, and if your best friend has the most votes, you win a $100 credit to the North Peace Veterinary Clinic. Pet of the Month is brought to you by North Peace Veterinary Clinic.
Moose Country weather.
Well, we still might see some freezing rain this morning mixed with snow, but that's going to clear off by noon. We'll see sunshine and wind, high of +5. Few clouds tonight, a low of -2. It'll be windy as well. A mix of sun and cloud tomorrow, pretty darn windy later in the morning. That's going to blow those clouds off. We'll see sunny sky in the afternoon, high +3. Sunday, cloudy, good chance of showers and windy, high of 6. And Monday, a mix of sun and cloud with a good chance of flurries, high of -2.
Our community first. This is Moose Talks with Dub Craig on Moose FM.
Thanks again to our guests Jordann Kaye and Becky Grimsrud for joining us today. If you'd like to hear this episode again, you can check out the energeticcity.ca podcast page. You can listen to this and old episodes of Moose Talks there, along with episodes of our other excellent locally produced podcasts, including Secrets of the North, all about true crime in the northeast of BC. Before the Peace, all about the Indigenous experience and stories of peoples from the Peace region. And of course, Voices of the Peace, where Ted Sloan talks to community members who are really community drivers, all about their stories of coming to be here in Fort St. John and what makes them tick. You can visit energeticcity.ca/podcasts for your listening pleasure now. Well, that's the show for today. Trela Pashinsky and Jordan Prentice are the producers of Moose Talks. I'm Dub Craig. Be well.
Join us next Friday at 10 a.m. for another episode of Moose Talks, a weekly talk show about Fort St. John and the North Peace.